Okay, it's my privilege and honor to introduce Thuy Ho, who's a PhD candidate in Department of Geography at Indiana University, a fellow geographer. So I'm excited about that. Um, Ho's research explores agrarian change, gender, and environmental precarity in Mekong Delta, Vietnam. And her work is situated at the intersection of political ecology, agrarian studies, and critical feminist geography. Before starting her PhD here at IU, Ho has completed dual master's degree in actually two different degrees in international development studies and environmental studies. So we share this knack of hoarding master's degrees. I hold a couple of them, and she has two too. And she was a Fulbright scholar too. Another commonality between us. I was a Fulbright scholar here at PhD. So that's another fascinating thing. Ho is already a very accomplished writer before finishing her PhD. Even a fascinating aspect of her work is that she uses multiple media and textual resources to tell her stories and her scholarship. For example, Ho adapts her research shared in her article, Environmental Precarity, the State and Contract Farming in the Mekong Delta, to a documentary titled Leaving the Rice Field, to highlight both scholarly and practical dimensions of agrarian transformation. Fresh out of the oven articles, congratulations, that was published just recently in Antipode, examines how Vietnam's reliance on cheap migrant labor, especially women, sustains economic growth while simultaneously depleting their physical, mental, and emotional well-being through, quote, multi-sided labor of social reproduction, unquote. It calls for redistributing reproductive responsibilities among the state, market, and society to achieve social justice while highlighting migrant women's agency and temporal spatial dynamics of their labor. Whose work illuminates at the intersection of climate vulnerability, agricultural modernization, and social resilience in one of the world's most dynamic delta regions, the precarity of precarity that capital accumulation causes to communities and environments. So today, Ho's talk is titled Contested Climate Frontier of Mekong Delta, Relocation Programs and Reproduction of Vulnerability. Please join me in welcoming almost Dr. Ho.
Nice work, you write about me better. Hi, everyone. This is not my first time here in Ostrom, but before I present my paper, I would like to thank the lady over there. I call my academic mom and my academic auntie, who is not today, or Diana Ojeda. Yeah, so they are the two that very most important people for me that have supported me and give me the flexibility to do my academic work. Thank you. So this is a part of my dissertation. And this is where I study about in the coastal area of the Mekong Delta. So I would like to, wait. So this is a part of the coastal region in the Mekong Delta. We call the river mouth, where you see the mangrove forest on both sides of the river, and this is on the right is a sluice gate, and on the left is you can see the wind farm, the wind turbines, and this is kind of like polder or embankments that protect the seaway and the mangrove forest. So the new investment in wind power tourism and continuous environmental engineering projects such as these. The Mekong Delta has become a hotspot of climate change and receive a widespread attention for climate resilience, infrastructure development, a lot of funding, expertise pulling in. And recently, the government has implemented the large-scale relocation programs that aim to remove thousands of households out of the impacted area, which is mainly the coastal mangrove forest. So this is one part of the study area where I observe the erosion, and this is exactly what's happening right now. In the mangrove forest, relocation occur in this area and in the area that has not impacted. Okay, so the objective of this research is to examine the politics of knowledge production on the climate adaptation and the relocation programs in the Mekong Delta. I aim to understand how the climate adaptation, particularly through the relocation or they call resettlement program that reproduce the new vulnerabilities, dispossession, and increase the poverty for the coastal residents. I also draw on the common property theory, which is Ostromian based, to explore the land tenure dynamics in the protected areas and examine the interplays of diverse land use interests, institutional agreements, and governing the authorities in the resource management of the contemporary land governance regimes, particularly in Vietnam. So the research on the common property guided by Ostrom principles for effective collective management has demonstrated that the local communities can be a successful alternative to centralized and private management of resources. And they frame the commons as the system of regulated resource use. Also, in this theory, the role of local institutions and non-state actors has proven effective in integrating livelihood development with the natural resource management. However, much of this research on the common property and community-based management has focused on the community control lens, assuming the institutional stability, cooperation, and local institutions promoting the sustainable use of the land and resources. It also operates based on the vision of a small and integrated groups of people can sustainably and equitably managing the resource using the local norms instead of the groups that have multiple diverse interests as well as actors. Meanwhile, the state managed and the private or property operates on the idea that managing the extractive resource and often led to exclusion and degradation of the resources. And also eviction of the local population from their ancestral lands. Collective and inalienable land holdings are seen to promote conservation and resist dispossession. They may not align with the diverse desire of local populations and have tendency to oversimplify the local interests and the government structures. And so, because some communities, they favor collective land and collective land ownership to protect against the large-scale expropriation and preserve the cultural identity. Seeing land as sacred and inseparable from their way of life, while others who seek business opportunities may prefer individual land rights. And meanwhile, the state wish to pursue the goals of conservation, climate adaptation, and economic development at the same time. So this is a type of ambivalent desires of multiple actors in the same resource, on the same resource. So this is the existing situation of the coastal mangrove forest in the Mekong Delta that I tried to study. This is the map of the study area. So I study at two coastal provinces in the Mekong Delta. Since July this year, they already merged into one because Vietnam has undergone another reforms in history that reducing the administrative units. So on this map, you can see that a very small strip of mangrove forest remain in the two provinces. This is I employ the qualitative methods basically based on the focus group discussion and informant interviews. I had valuable opportunities to interview government officials also from different programs, including relocation and the border gas and forestry administration, because they all together manage the resource in the, and also connected to my earlier research on rural migration. I had a chance to talk with the migrants who came from the areas that impacted by the relocation. So first, I will talk about the relocation program that has been implemented in the two areas. So the residents in the protected areas were the mix of the two groups. The first is the people who live in these mangrove forests for generations, and also the contract-based migrants who migrated to the areas and settle under the agreements with the companies that granted land, or received land concession by the government for forest management, for aquaculture in and around the protected areas. So these community, they either do fishing or agroforestry that integrate extensive fish and mangrove forests. Like in the picture here, you can see these the mangrove forest and where people grow the fish within that. So this is one fish that we call the fishery community, where they live along the river mouth like this. And this community, they do fishery, they don't do agroforestry because they are not allowed, they were not granted the land. So in two areas, the first in Bạc Liêu province, starting in 2015, the local government required the entire residents in the protected areas to relocate completely under the fear of climate change impacts. And this relocation project aimed to move 5,800, more than 5,800 households out of the protected areas in multiple periods until 2050. So they have to complete by 2050. And in Cà Mau province, the relocation was intermittently done several years before 2009, yes. The government estimated to remove around like 14.5 people living, household living in the protected areas. But it was delayed due to the budget shortage and resistance and several other reasons. So at the time of my study, in this province, they has relocated about only 390 households. And these people, the 390 household was removed to make land for a forestry company project. And so this is the photo of the land will be allocated for the relocated communities. So they prepared this piece of land and infrastructure in 2018, and it has not been completed. So they built up a small road like this and installed the electricity line, and they also built primary schools. And the relocation program, they will provide each relocated household with a plot of land with the width of 7 meter, 30 meter long. I don't know how you can turn it into square feet. And the cash assistance is about like 30 to 40 million dong. This I can convert into 1,000 to 1,500 US dollar. It's like more than my monthly rent here. So in some place it's smaller. It is maybe only around $750 to build the new house. So a piece of land of 7 meter wide, 30 meter long, and around, let's say, 1,500 US dollar to build a house. And the compensation package different from the locations and the province, depending on the availability of the budgets. And also depend on the land availability. Sometimes they will provide like shorter in terms of length. And the compensation is really not enough for the house construction. And the people have to move to a new place without a clear plan for the new livelihood. For example, this is the picture of the communities who already relocated from earlier periods. And this is the house, how they built the house for the local community. And they don't have, so these were this community earlier, they did the fishery. So they catch fish and harvested clam on the shores. But now when they move to the new locations, they don't have new means of livelihoods. And they are disconnected with the shores because they could not find a place. There was no place for them to dock their boats. So some of them continue to do the fisheries, but they join the boats with other people, and some other just migrated to do casual hire labor job elsewhere. And in the smaller picture is within this the row there were about 30 households were relocated, and some of them just try to sell here. I don't know, you call them groceries, or convenience stores, but there they sell food and stuff and things. And there was one community, they say like, we just basically selling to ourselves because no buyers. Everyone want to find a way of, like making money, and we all do the same thing. So, and there is one community that notably in Cà Mau province, like the cap of the country, there was about 43% of the population migrated. So this is huge. And the local government tried to not to review the records because they were afraid that the community, their commune is the unit there, will be merged with other communes, and then there will be another funding cut to the newly merged commune. So that was the relocation, some parts of the relocation program. And here I see the Mekong Delta is a contested climate frontier because the climate change is communicated by the local governments and media as the sea level rise. This is the coastal areas, and floods, storms, although they haven't seen storms in the south of Vietnam, in the Mekong Delta, they haven't seen storms for years. And erosion or land subsidence that necessitate the relocation of people and investment of infrastructures such as dikes, embankments, sluice gates, and stream aquaculture. The understanding about the climate change is different from local people and the officials. And some local communities even say, when I ask them if they know climate change, and they say climate change is just environmental pollution. And you go there and you talk to the aquaculture farms over there, and you will see they polluted the water here. And now they call it climate change. So it's the whole idea about climate change were propagandized by the government as the sea level and erosion. And here, why I see is the interest here is overlap and competed. So the people live in the forest. They took care. They were. I will talk about the land regimes in Vietnam later. But here, the people who live in the forest, they were allowed to take care of the forest and do the fish, grow fish. And they see that the mangrove forest is very beneficial, and circulation of water in and out the mangrove forest is very important. But when the sluice gates and the embankments were built, in some areas, the water is stagnant. And so they cannot circulate the water in and out their, let's say, their lands, their mangrove forests. But in the meantime, on the other side of the dikes, where the aquaculture is like developing, and the stream aquaculture keep discharging the wastewater through the land, through the mangrove forest. So like in this picture on the top, it was from a part of the mangrove forest that did not have like water coming in and out for 4 years, and they have seen like there's no sea level rise. We haven't seen it for 4 years. They keep saying that the sea water is rising, but we don't see it, and we need the water, but we don't have it. And I cannot capture it from my phone, but under the what? The trees, canopies was, and you see the roots there were dead fish, and the whole here, this family, and you see a lot of what called the green thing here,
Algae.
Yeah, algae. Yes, the fish are dead, and they have like the widespread fish. This year, they were asking the government to open the how to say, to conduct the water into there. So in another place where the people from will live, they found an island deposited from the water to the sea, and it's formed an island, and the people came there to live, and then they were asked to move out of the island and to settle on the edge of the mangrove forest. And that mangrove forest was managed by a company. And but when the people were asked to leave, to move out of the forest, the government say they're going to have the tourism sites there. And because when they were moved out of the forest, they did not have means of living. So they were expecting that the new tourism sites will create more jobs for them, because catching fish is becoming like harder. So these are some features showing that the interest and the interest of different actors in the whole landscape was conflicting. And you see, this is the restaurant, the famous one in Bạc Liêu province, owned by the local officials. Inside the embankment, you can see there the new tourism sites owned by the wind power company. This is on the mangrove forest that's already clear cut. In construction, they are pumping the sand from the shores to build the road and the dikes. This is the sluice gate, is also in construction, and for the whole 46 kilometers along the coast, this project like this has been ongoing for 15 years. And this is previously, this was the part of the mangrove forest is given for the wind turbines project, and it's recently it got erosion, and they keep building embankments to protect it. And this is a cooperatives, the clam cooperatives. So the people in the mangrove forest was removed, but some cooperatives with more than 200 names are actually not the real names of the local people, but they were established. And then they make the enclosure, and local people are not allowed to go to this shore to collect clams as usual. And this is another part of the wind turbine wind farm on the other side of the dike, so which used to be the mangrove forest, and now it becomes the aquaculture, shrimp aquaculture. And these wind towers and the grid lines were built just on the people land and next to the house. And this house was affected, and the family here said they are going to abandon this house soon and move to his daughter's house to live, because the fear of previous fire incident that ignite from this tower. So this is the map that I draw from my observation desk. As you can see here, small strip of land of mangrove forest, but there were a lot of development, such as wind power station, commercial. Oh, my mouse. So the commercial, like they are going to build a financial complex here. And also there were 3 wind projects. And while in Mau province here, a lot of there's not a lot of development like in Bạc Liêu province, but they are facing like increasing threats from land subsidence. As you can see here, the land subsidence cluster there is from the area used to be under the desalinization project more than 20 years ago in the Mekong Delta, where they trap the fresh water for the freshwater crops. And they celebrated as a successful case of like fighting against the nature. But now, during my study, there were more than 400 spots of land subsidence in this area. And the argument for this is because of climate change.
Sorry,
Simple.
can I just ask you to repeat that? Did you say that they were using the desalination for irrigation?
Yes, they were, they make a lot of canals and embankments, and they block the water coming from the sea for the fresh water, like you can see here, for the freshwater crops. And now it is facing the land subsidence, because from 2016, Vietnam got like a big drought, and upstream China, how to say, did not release the water from the dam. And there's a lot of like, but the argument still say this is because of the climate change. It's become like hotter and everything. Yeah, it's so familiar for everyone here, I think. Okay, so it is climate frontier with different interests, and it is under contestation also because people always resist it. For some people, they say they have been here for generations and they are not going to leave. And if in one community, they say that if we must die, we just die here. We don't want to die anywhere. And in some other communities who do the fisheries, they say if the government compensate them fairly, they agree to leave. But for them, they just say the government just come and do the survey every year, but not saying about anything kind of like compensation and how they going to live and where they can dock their fish, things like that. So some of this is how people show the resistance. Some of people who build a new house next to the temporary one, because within the forest land protected areas, people are not allowed to build the permanent houses. So permanent houses and access on land are not formally recognized. So they show their resistance by building house, showing that this is their land from their ancestors, and they're not going anywhere, and clearly they are not impacted by the climate change. But in some other areas, government, there's a lot of lawsuits and legal battles between government and the local residents. So on this board of forest ranger office, these are the cases that the government suing local people. Their names I already erased their names. And this is only for 1 month. When I came there, the previous one already is resolved, and some like around 120 households refused to relocate and got sued, and some of them just abandoned and left because of the fear of arrested. And in other areas, like around 15 households filed lawsuits against the authority because they said they came here and they got the red book, mean the permanent or the legal land use rights certificate before the establishment of the forestry management in 1992. So the legal battle is still going on. So I would like to talk why there are legal battles and why there's contestation and how connected to the governance of the land and resources in the Mekong Delta by talking about the land regimes here. So the land in Vietnam is under the state control. So under the people's ownership, but it can be allocated for the state-led projects, regardless of the land use rights granted for citizen and the history of land ownership claimed by the citizen. Forest land in Vietnam controlled by the government. And it is categorized into 3 groups: the production forest, the special use forest, and protected forest. And my case was in the protected forest. And starting in 1993, when we had the land law that recognized the individual land use rights, and we were granted the land use rights certificate. That is called the Red Book. But the resident in the protected areas is not granted the land use right certificate, but only the contract-based certificates, which mean the green books. And this type of contract term did not grant the household and individuals land use rights, and any assets built on the forest land, like house and other properties, were not formally recognized. So the residents not allowed to build permanent houses, only the semi-structured houses that you see earlier. And the forest land in the coastal areas also considered the border areas, because it is the border, the land border of the country, and it were co-governed by the 3 government agencies: the border control units, the Coast Guard, and forestry department. So it is like complicated land regime here. So the livelihood activities of the forest populations were also subjected to the control of the 3 agencies. So the Green Book holder must obtain the permission of the Protected Forest Administration to transfer the land use rights in protected areas. For example, I can transfer my land use rights, my Green Book, to Abdul, but I have to get the permits from the 3 administration. And in some cases, I'm not allowed to transfer my green books to you. And with the green books, I have the rights to access, harvest, exclusion, but not alienation, and not an absolute management of my land, which I have the green books. So the 2 rights, such as the alienation, is subject to the governance of a bundle of authorities, as I said earlier, the 3 agencies. And clearly there's a lack of management or the shared governance between these the agencies. So based on that complex situation of the land regime and the climate adaptation intervention in the Mekong Delta with multiple interests and conflicting interests, my paper tried to advocate for a shared governance. And at this phase, I would like to have the expertise of people in this room to see if, because neither the states or the private entities can ensure a sustainable use of the forest resource, because this is not static, it's not only one place, but it is across the system and the landscape. So the communal tenure rights in the protected areas are not formally recognized, and a gross-scale collective governance of the resources, including the land, have not been developed by the government. So communities in this area face the increased vulnerability to the dispossession and displacement. And climate adaptation is inherently local. As you can see, people live there for generations. They know how to adapt with the situation, for example, the floods. And the local knowledge is very important. So my argument is here is that commoning the protected areas and commoning the climate adaptation initiatives can help become a collective action process in the development of the shared governance resources. So I would like to hear from experts here if that sounds viable or possible for solution for the Mekong Delta. And I also recall Ecuador presentation earlier about the social capital, which is also a challenge in the Amazona. So I don't know if there's similarity, and I would like to engage further. So this become balancing for the Mekong Delta when you see the coastal area affected by salinity intrusion. The projection of this is like of the salinity intrusion is like on the map on your right. So what is the future of the Mekong Delta? And before I end, and I hope this will become my final chapter of my dissertation, I would like again thank you, Ostrom, for providing me amazing resources. So I can, from the beginning to the end, I mean, and my beloved academic mom and auntie that yeah, help me make it possible. Thank you.
Okay, great. Can we start with students? Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question regarding your presentation. When you were looking at the literature, did you come across with some studies that mention, I mean, some quantitative studies that mentioned how precipitation intensity changed at least last 2 decades? Because, you know, as far as I can see from your, I mean, interviews with the local people, they couldn't understand climate change effectively or scientifically. So maybe there is really climate change issue, and you know, precipitation intensity could change and flood could happen in just like 1 or 2 days, and their livelihood and their lives would be in danger really, you know, and it would affect their lives dangerously. So I was wondering, did you find any kind of report that investigated the precipitation intensity changes, at least in that?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Yes, I did see not qualitative but quantitative research and projection in, and that's why I made a map earlier that the precipitation, and not also precipitation, but the how to say retreat of the shorelines. Yes, and that have been communicated to the government, to the local residents, and for the local, but I did not go into detail into that, which I intend to do out of this paper. For the local residents, like the people in here and in some other like fishery communities, they have seen flood. For them, flood comes in the middle of the lunar month calendar monthly, and before they could predict when the flood comes, the tide of flood, when the flood come, and where they could move their stuff and move to other places and come back just 2 days later. But recently, since the start of the dike and the roads and the sluice gates, because the operation of the sluice gates are not consistent. Some place they open, some place they just close, and they could not predict the flood anymore. And one community told me that there was one time that flood came in the middle of the night and they could not respond to it because it was not. And in their area, the sluice gate was always open. And in this area, the sluice gate is closed. And part of this area here was eroded because when the flood came, the tide came and the flood came and the sluice gates was closed. They take everything out, and there were several homes in this area.
So what's the
So-
reason that they are resisting? I mean, they see that there is climate change effects. What's the reason that they don't?
They
Because
did not say this is climate change effect. The local resident did not believe this is climate change. They were communicated as it is climate change, but they did not believe it.
Mm.
And this community particularly told me that because the sluice gate was closed
oh,
and the water just took away their property, their house. It's not because of climate change.
thanks.
Yeah, but it's not like I am or this paper is trying to like deny the climate change. With that is real and the projections valid, but it does not affect everywhere equally. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, one word that came through me when I listened to you was the word trust, and the trust between the local users and the state. So that, as I understand it, the local users think that climate change is just a pretext to move them and use the land in another way. So do they work in any way to create trust between the state and the local users in this area? Do the state do anything to do so that they can build trust between each other? Because I think that's the only way that they actually could come together. Because if you lack trust, yeah, it's hard.
Thank you. But just to clarify, who are they here?
The local users who are evicted and have to move, and the state that want to be relocated. Yeah.
So the local resident and the state trust is always an issue that is really hard. And it is ambivalent because the desires are ambivalent. So the local residents do trust the state and expect the state to do something, for example, to save them from the floods, to develop the economic, develop the economies in the areas by building up the infrastructures and things. But at the same time, the local people don't trust the government when they see with their eyes that why the cooperatives there can enclose the areas and abandon them prohibited them from coming to the shore to collect clams where they used to collect. And also why they are removed out of the forest, but the tourism facility, restaurant of the local officials and the people who are tied to the local officials are in there. So aren't they impacted by the climate change? As the government says, so the trust issue here is still, it's still challenging.
Can I?
I see. Go ahead.
Just understand. Thank you for your presentation. I just hear after Jesper questions. Is there any? I think I didn't see because they don't trust government, as I understand. Is there any like planning, participatory relocation planning process there, or practice? Because we can understand. I think you mentioned cooperatives, and they are working specifically with local offices. Then. But this is your research really important. I'm just trying to understand to talk about the the trust. I think it's gonna add something.
So the relocation plan is not a participatory process.
It's not.
So it's like every year, officials coming to do the survey. And they will count like how many people are there. And I had a chance to obtain a book of all the names with the year they settle in the area. Some like even 4 to 5 generations. And with they also with the there's a column they say willing to relocate or not. Yes, no, yes, no. And a lot of course no. And the people say, oh, we have been here, like they coming here for years. They say we are going to move. We don't know when, and we don't know what is the plan for like moving. So where are we going to dock our boats? Because that is very important, like the most concern for them. Where are they going to the boats to dock their boats so they continue to do the fishery? And some others like who live in the mangroves, they say, if we cannot have the mangroves, what will we do? We grow fish and we take care of the mangroves. But now we are moving to the new place like you see earlier. And that already happened to different communities when they live there with this house. And yeah, so it is not a participatory process. And it has been like that for sadly centuries, because Vietnam has a long history of relocation for territory claim in the mountainous area. And it just happened the same way. And that's why people resisted and lawsuit and yeah.
Yes, Patricia, and after that.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. This is a question of somebody who doesn't know much on the subject. But, the political discourse is telling to the people, we have a problem of climate change. This place is becoming dangerous, hence you have to leave. Okay, so after you leave, if I got this right, the government is saying to the people, we are going to make of this a protected area. Is that correct? Or what is exactly, what's the purpose of moving the people here? I mean, you mentioned the fact that maybe they are using the land for their own businesses, but by thinking an adequate, ecological policy, what will be the purpose of moving the people?
I would say, thank you. I would say the territorialization. So here is not like we move you and then we call the protected forest. So let's say people like I live here. I claim this land when it's were the wilderness and swamp. And I claim this land, and then the states formed. The state was established. And so back to our history, the state was established in, we gained the independence in 1945, and then wars, and then reunification in 1975. And until, in that area, until 1992, the forestry administration established. So the land belonged to, in Vietnam, we don't own land. We only have the land use rights certificates. So the land controlled by the government. And in that year, they come to my land and say, we established this as the protected areas. You are allowed to live here with the certificate, the green books, the contemporary or contract based. I give you this piece of land. I give you this piece of land. You take care of it. You make a living on it. You are not allowed to sell, or you can sell us, kind of sell or transfer, only transfer with my permit. So for me, I view it as the territorialization and controlling the territory claiming and I forgot the word by the government. Yeah.
Probably making land claims more legible by sort of establishing these sort of land rights. And Yeah, we have a question.
Very interesting seminar, actually, I like it. I have a question and let me give a bit of context before actually going into the question, no, like, the reason, for example, the Mekong Delta area, it's important for someone like me working with mosquitoes is because there is plenty of malaria transmission is a major issue, not in Vietnam, but in Cambodia and Laos. And actually, it's like a major global threat because that's the place where the drug-resistant parasites are being selected and so on. I was wondering, with these floodgates being removed, because one of the things or the good things, for example, from the malaria point of view, is that having the water flowing, it's actually a natural way to control the mosquitoes that transmit malaria. I wonder, like, if that's playing a role on the thing. And then the other thing is if it's like, how does this health aspect is considered into the relocation of people, no? Because again, going a little bit personal, like back in the time I was a faculty at Nagasaki University, I had a student from Vietnam. And something that impressed me is that a lot of things get done not participatorily, but because there is like the greater technical concern about health, let's say. I don't know what's the situation on this side. The thing I know superficially though is that, for example, malaria is a big issue on the Cambodian side, on the Laos side, but not in Vietnam. That's clear.
Well, that is out of my expertise, but let me try. So malaria was a huge thing and still in Vietnam. Last year we did have dengue, malaria, but dengue, yeah. So the swarm, it used to be like when we still had a lot of like forest, and swarm used to be easy, and the government did implement, like blanket spray. And we do it, I think we do it, we have it like twice in the summer. So that is like how they control the malaria in the area. And water circulation is very important, but in this area, we did not see, or I did not see it when I was there as any narratives about malaria's control and the role of the mangrove forest. People just basically say, and their most concern is like, we are relocated. We don't have the means of living. Yeah, and on the Cambodia and Laos sides were the dance of the forest. If you look at the borderland on the west side of Vietnam, you will see on this side, our country too really bad. We are cutting. People like were making joke like, if the sorry American, but if the American can come back, there's no way that we can beat them because there's no forest to do the guerrilla tactic. That's kind of joke, but yes, it is true. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, we are at time. Thank you, everyone. And I think we have a lot here. I think one of the things to think about is like this idea of trust and how the government and the people can come together in formulation of policy that seems to be just coming from top down. Yeah, like kind of how people can be part of policy making that governs their comments. And also kind of thinking about how different communities around in different parts on the coast are kind of adapting to both climate change and government enforced dispossession in different ways. So there are like, internal differences to the class. But thank you so much, everyone, and thank you for